My name is Michael Schouwenaar. I'm the team manager of the finance market group within Secura. I actually started out as a software developer. It's like 15 years ago already. When I was doing my security master, I worked as a software developer. And even though I studied specifically for security, I liked the field of software development enough that I continued in there for quite a few years. But at some point, I did want to switch over to more security and in particularly offensive security side of things. And through a former fellow student, I ended up at Deloitte, where I was working for the hacking team, initially as a software developer to make software that helped their lives forward, at least with by automating the boring stuff like reporting and automated scanning, things like that. But whenever there was something going on and I could learn something or develop myself, I did that. So if there was a pizza session or a CTF or security specific certifications I could do, I did that. And that ended up with me being on the Capture the Flag team there, so the CTF team. And we even made it to 2 world finals, and one of them we managed to win. So that was pretty cool. But that was also a sign for me that I could switch over to offensive security full time. And so basically things got out of hand from there, I guess. And now instead of building things, I break them. But I always make sure to provide a report to compensate for it. So. And while I've been a team lead for quite a few years already, since the start of this year, I'm now the team manager for the finance market group within Secura, where I will hopefully help my team move forward and while still contributing a bit on the technical side of things as well. Mainly, I see my role as facilitating basically the new generation of hackers that we have within the team to keep growing to the next level. And of course, still occasionally help out with the more complex assessments that we do. So a lot of threat modeling, but also some red teaming and red team project management side of things, trainings, which I also do a lot. But basically, I just try to keep a pulse on what's going on, what people are working on, making sure that they have the required skills to do it, and maybe help them grow if they don't yet. And keeping an eye out if their growth path also corresponds to what we need as a market group and as a company. But from the big picture perspective, I just like to think of that I make sure that my team is happy, that they're doing cool things and even helping them find interesting things in, for example, assessments that they are maybe a little less interested in or find a little less interesting. There's always something cool to find. So I try to help them see that. And of course, try to shield them from maybe the nonsense or the things that are less fun and help them grow in a professional fashion. Well, I contribute the most, I think, on the application security type of things. So either application assessments, but also from a code perspective, obviously with my background as well. But I also really enjoy doing network assessments and lately also red teaming. And I have a particular interest in cryptography. I definitely have a lot to learn in that area, but I do think I know more than most of my peers on this subject. So it is an interesting thing to look at. But what I love a lot is teaching people about this field that we have, which is very interesting, and helping people train their hacker mindset, as we like to call it. We try to look at it from the perspective of a hacker and how can I bypass or break things in interesting ways. And if this is for my colleagues on, for example, an interesting finding or an attack chain that we did somehow, or maybe a group of developers who want to develop more secure software, either is good with me as long as people want to learn and you want to move forward in gaining knowledge here, then I love teaching them about it. One thing I also like about cybersecurity or hacker culture in general, I suppose, is that there are different areas within this culture, but a lot of it is based on being open and sharing things about knowledge, but also cool things you can do with something. And sharing it with each other. So there's I think a lot of crossover between the more anarchistic subcultures and hippie culture in that sense, where sharing is caring. And I think that's what you see a lot in the cybersecurity field as well. But overall, I just love the puzzles. Every assessment is different, a different type of challenge, a different context, and you have to figure out what works, what doesn't, and in which ways you can use that or abuse that to get to concrete risks and maybe find that next cool attack chain. to impact client or help them improve in a certain way. And I don't think that will ever get old for me. So that's something that I really like. The next few years is maybe a bit difficult to predict, but if we look at trends or the shift that have happened in the past few years, you can see that cybersecurity is becoming a problem or something that every company needs to address, instead of just the classically big companies like banks or government-related agencies. In the past, most companies just had to look for, let's say, reputation-related hacks, like defacement of their website. That obviously, with the rise of ransomware, this is something that almost every company needs to address in some way, because the evil hackers will target people that they think can pay, and that make sure that the baseline of security that is required goes up for everyone, for all companies. And I think that's something that we have to be aware of as a society, but also in how we address these type of issues. Just having a security awareness campaign and a solid patch management strategy is no longer good enough to be protected in most cases, because you have to make sure that you understand what you're doing, for example, in your cloud environment, or understanding what you use in your supply chain and how you want to address the risks in there. And that's where I think a lot of steps will be made in the next few years, because it is nearly impossible to avoid a supply chain in some form or another. It's not possible to make everything yourself and only rely on what you make. And I think there will be a lot of developments within that area. And in the past few months, we've also seen a lot in the use of AI and machine learning and things like that. And I'm not really someone who's easily impressed by those type of buzzwords and fancy proof of concepts. But the last few months have impressed me with the developments that have been made. And maybe the rise of Skynet is closer by than we think for now. You can already see this, for example, with advanced endpoint protection integrating these type of solutions. And I have a feeling that a lot of big leaps will be made in that field in the next few years. Well, if you're just starting out, I would say explore different topics, see what interests you and what does not. I think that's equally as important. But the field is quite big and it moves along super fast. So I think for most of us mortals, it's almost impossible to keep up to date with everything. So what I would recommend is see what interests you and what works out, but then start specializing in the topics you like the most and focus on those, at least on the short and medium term. Keeping up to date is always important. So making sure that you are aware of what progresses are being made and how the field moves forward is important, and being proactive there and keep developing your skills is, I think, essential. And you will find that at some point, if you are sufficiently skilled in a certain topic or a certain few topics, you will find a lot of parallels in other areas as well. And then it becomes easier to branch out across those different topics. But I think overall, for most people, it's probably easier to specialize in the first few years of your career. Having good colleagues, of course, that helps a lot. Also with topics you're maybe not familiar with, but I think a lot of my colleagues as well focus on things like social media, and especially I think for security-related topics, a lot gets shared there. I mean, everyone shares things on social media, but I think in particular for cybersecurity, you can find a lot of useful information there. So, for example, finding people you like on Twitter or certain companies and follow them, and they will gladly share a lot of resources with you on how to improve or find information on these certain topics. So that will help a lot. But and again, conferences I think will also be very useful here. I think, especially compared to other fields, a very large amount of information is shared and distributed through conferences, and not just on the information level, but also on the context that you make. And that will give you more people to cling to find that information and figure out what's going on. And of course, I mentioned it before, but I love CTFs, and I think especially if you're more in the technical side, I recommend to at least participate in them occasionally, because it might not be always realistic, but in many cases they are very relevant and up to date on the developments that are currently going on. and it can give you an excellent opportunity to try them out or get some technical experience on these type of new findings that are being released.